If you experience something which is truly amazing, and you want to tell other people about it, who would be very vague about what they had experienced? Let's say that I had a car, which I drive regularly many kilometres, but I never have to fill it with fuel. The needle stays at half a tank no matter how far I drive, and I haven't filled it up in a couple of years, in which time I've driven over 10,000 kilometres, and no one else has filled it up in this time. Now, what if I told you that I had something amazing to tell you? A miracle had occurred. I have a car which I don't fill up with petrol. That's it. I have a car which I don't fill up with petrol. Why would I not give you more information? It's certainly not a miracle to not fill a car with petrol if you don't drive it anywhere, or if someone else fills it up on your behalf. Given my introduction that something miraculous has occurred, it's strongly implied that I am actually driving the car about, but that the car is not using up any fuel. But this, of course, goes against everything we know about how cars work. Given such a claim, it's much more likely that something else is going on, that the car is not being driven, or someone else is filling it up, or the claim could even be true if it were a diesel car, and it is technically correct no one's putting petrol in it. If I really did have a car which didn't use up any fuel while being used, and didn't need to be filled up, why would I not spell that out as clearly as possible? Why leave it as a single vague claim with a heavy load of implication? Let's say that I had such a car, or claimed to have such a car, and I submitted it to scientific investigation. There is apparently some unknown process going on. Perhaps this process is supernatural, and therefore can't be directly observed, but scientists could at least narrow down where this miracle is occurring. So you could ask, for example, is there a unidirectional flow of petrol at the outlet of the fuel tank? Is there petrol flowing into the cylinders? This would help us understand, is the petrol actually being combusted, but being replaced by some unknown means? Or is it not being combusted in the first place? Are combustion products, i.e. exhaust fumes, produced and expelled from the car? Is their composition in accordance with the burning of petrol in the combustion chamber? Does the car become lighter as exhaust is emitted? If one were to put the car in an airtight chamber, does the mass of the chamber plus car plus air change as the car's engine runs? The result would be narrowing down where the miracle occurs. A scientist's assessment of the situation would not be, it's impossible. It would be something like, well, the engine is using fuel, it's flowing out of the fuel tank, but it appears as the fuel is being used, it's being replenished in the fuel tank by an unknown process. Or perhaps the engine is not actually burning fuel, but the cylinders in the engine are experiencing a force identical to the force they would experience from the combustion of fuel inside them, although that combustion isn't occurring, and the source of this mysterious force is not understood yet. So, what if I were to say, scientists, mechanics, engineers, other experts have thoroughly investigated my car and declare it's impossible. Given that such an occurrence is not consistent with the known laws of physics, any curious scientist would be eager to publish their observations and measurements, to subject the phenomenon to further consideration and study. I can't think of any genuine scientist who would see and measure such a phenomenon and then just shrug. It's impossible. Yeah, I suppose I'll see you later. They report it, publish it, write about it, write research proposals, seek further investigation. So, what if then, while telling you about my magic car, attempted a scientific rationalization of the phenomenon? How many of you know that there are quantum radio waves everywhere? Do you know that quantum radio waves are just energy, and petrol is just energy for your car? And therefore, radio waves are going through every part of your car, and the car is just running off radio waves. I needn't tell the scientifically literate that that cat-candid explanation would be irrelevant if it weren't nonsense. After giving such a scientifically illiterate justification about energy, what have I then followed on by saying, in the context of my explanation about energy, that the oil in my car never needs changing, the windscreen washer fluid never goes down, and the tyres don't wear out. Energy. So, in summary, an incredibly vague claim with no clarification, followed by an attempted justification which leaves out everything that might actually contribute to the claim, and instead just gives irrelevant nonsense as justifications. So, why not give more information? Clarify this incredible claim. Why not answer the massive questions which hang over it? Is the car actually driven? Does someone else fill it up? Does it even run on petrol? I see that there are three options as to why not give more information. Why not answer some of these questions? First, that the claimant himself hasn't asked such questions, beyond the incredibly vague claim in the first place. If this is the case, the claimant apparently has very limited skills in differentiating fact from fiction, and is simply likely to believe anything that comes along that sounds good to them. I don't need to explain why you should not trust such a person who's making miracle claims. Second, that the claimant has asked such questions, is aware of them, but doesn't see them as important. And as in the previous case, someone who does not think such questions are important is someone whose ability to reliably identify reality is compromised, and is probably someone you shouldn't trust with miracle claims. Let me just clarify those. Without seeing the importance of probing and understanding a claim and applying critical thinking, you are left open to believing anything which comes along, whether it's true or not, based on just whether you like the idea. If one were to gain the trust of such a person, or maybe even a stranger, one could simply make up miracle claims which fit and support their presuppositions, and they would blindly take them as fact and parrot them on. Thirdly, that the reality is that answering such questions would show the claim not to be miraculous at all. I don't fill up my car, but it just sits in the garage. I don't fill up my car, but my mum does frequently. I don't put petrol in my car. It's a diesel car. In other words, the claim is not miraculous in the first place. Giving more information would simply expose that. In this instance, one could just be very vague and give heavy hints at the occurrence of a miracle, without having to straight out lie, simply by leaving out important information. I'll leave you to speculate on why someone might do that. In short, you have two options. The claimant is either incompetent at critical thinking, and will believe and pass on anything they're told without regard to the truth, or that the claimant is being dishonest. While assessing that previous dichotomy, one might consider that attempting to give a scientific rationalization for a miracle is superfluous. Furthermore, incoherent, factually incorrect, and non sequitur rationalizations, especially those mentioning quantum physics, while lacking any genuine understanding of the field, are generally given by charlatans attempting to sell crystals and magic water. Such attempted rationalizations have no place in searching for reality. So, it may or may not surprise you that a few weeks ago I sat in a room full of people cheering in agreement as someone told us, "I have a friend who doesn't eat," and then proceeded to give some incoherent attempted scientific rationalization while misrepresenting quantum physics and string theory. Given the other things this man said, I don't actually think he's a charlatan. I think he simply appears to live in a rather scary alternate reality where every supernatural claim is in fact true, and the only question is whether the supernatural things come from Satan or God. If that's not the case, then I think he simply needs to, in the words of Carl Sagan, develop his baloney detection kit. To this man I say, I have an invisible dragon living in my bike shed. Would you like to come and exorcise the demon? And then afterwards perhaps we can have a conversation about science and reason over a beer. Thanks for listening.